All right, welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of September 20th, 2021. In accordance with LB 898, please be advised that the order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda. Under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The council shall require any member of the public desiring to address the council to identify themselves, the name of an organization or group, including an address that you may be representing by such person or group, unless that address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, organization, or group, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date, nor planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please call the first item of business?
Our first item of business today for September 20th, 2021 is the Mayor's Award of Excellence.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bowers, members of the council. Thank you for allowing me to come down and share some great news with you all once again today. We're here to share that the Mayor's Award of Excellence for September 2020 goes to Michael Gardner of Aging Partners. And at the time of his nomination, Mike was a van driver, and he has since taken a position as an aging specialist. He was nominated by a trio of his colleagues: Aging Program Coordinator Mitch Sump, Aging Specialist Elizabeth Schuster, and Retired Aging Services Supervisor Sandra Lutz. And they nominated Mike in the categories of customer relations and valor for some special help he provided to an older resident during a medical crisis. The extraordinary assistance that Mike provided took place on August 26, 2020, when he arrived in an apartment complex to deliver meals. And several seniors who live in the complex like to wait outside for their meals. And one of the seniors was sitting on the seat of her walker when Mike saw her head drop to the side and she slumped. He caught the woman and started to talk to her to see if she would respond. And when she continued to slide down her walker, he lowered her to the ground and continued to speak to her until emergency first responders could arrive. And Mike waited until family members were informed of the medical emergency before he continued on his route. So when he was thanked for his actions, Mike said he was just doing his job, but his compassionate efforts in this situation was obviously more than doing his job. He directly aided a very vulnerable older adult. The nominators wrote that they wanted to honor Mike not only for his actions in this medical emergency, but also for his good humor, his kindness, and his service to aging partners as a driver in the Community Activities and Services program. Prior to the pandemic, Mike transported older residents to our senior centers every day. His quick smile, his hearty laugh, and his positive attitude have brightened the day of many of our Lincoln seniors. Please join me in congratulating Mike Gardner for his hard work and commitment to the city of Lincoln. Okay. And we have a few people who would like to speak about Mike. Aging Services Director Randy Jones couldn't be here today, but Program Manager Kay Wenzel is here, and she's going to come say a few words about Mike first.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. As Mayor said, my name is Kay Wenzel, and Randy Jones was not able to be here as our Director of Aging Partners. But on behalf of Aging Partners, we are also thrilled that Mike was honored in this way. This is just one example of the many things that he's done over the years, and we're very proud to be his colleague. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Kay. And next up, Mitch Sump would like to say a few words. Mitch?
Well, the mayor and Kay covered everything quite well there, but I will say I've had the pleasure of having Mike on my team for the last 7 years. He was a fantastic driver. In fact, a number of the ladies who he drove were not happy with me when he got his promotion. And I'll also tell you that there was a lot of dogs on the route that were very sad that he was no longer driving the route because he always had biscuits for them. When you can see the tails wagging as he pulls up, you know he's made a hit there too. But Mike is a genuinely good person. He did asked us to kill this award if we could at that point. It was too late. But I'm very proud to say that Mike not only works with me, but that Mike's my friend. And he's just a great person, so.
Mike, would you like to say a few words and maybe introduce any family you have here? Sure. And you can use that microphone if you like.
I have with me today my wife, Nancy, and my daughter, Megan, was able to come. And when they nominated for this, I told them it was just part of the job, which it is. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Let's all congratulate him. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Our first item on the agenda today, or secondary items, would be our consent agenda, sections 1 and 2.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on any of these items? Director Johnson?
Yes, good afternoon. Lynn Johnson with Lincoln Parks and Recreation. It is my pleasure to introduce to you this afternoon Emma Craig, who is an incoming member of the Community Forestry Advisory Board. We've had a couple of resignations from the 7-member board because of other work commitments, family commitments lately, so we're thrilled to have Emma join the board. Emma works for the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table, and she joined the meeting that we had about a week ago and was very interested and engaged and seems to be thrilled to be part of the committee, and we're very pleased to have her joining us. And I might ask you to come up if you would, please.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Emma Craig. I have had the absolute pleasure of being born and raised here and lived all 25 years of my life here. The city is truly my home and the place that I love most in the world, and I'm so excited to be able to give back to a city and a community that has given me so much in my life thus far, and being able to do that while also promoting the incredible importance of trees and community forestry in our city is just an absolute honor, and I'm so excited to be able to do that. So any questions, comments?
Are there any questions for Ms. Craig at this time?
No.
I guess the only statement that I would want to make is I'm so incredibly proud of you. It's been an honor to work with you and to see your actions and your leadership in this city. You're a great asset to the city, and our city is better for having you in it and for having your leadership. So I'm incredibly proud of you. Thank you. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any of these items? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on.
We can now vote on these items. Item 1A is appointing Emma Craig to the Community Forestry Advisory Board for a term to expire August 14, 2023, introduced by Beckius.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilwoman Washington. Any discussion? Seeing none, may I please call a roll?
Beckius?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward? Yes. Washington? Yes. Bowers?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1B is reappointing Lachelle Bradley Williams and Jessica Geisek to the Community Forestry Advisory Board for terms to expire August 14, 2024, introduced by Beckius.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilwoman Washington. Any discussion? Seeing none, may we please call a roll?
Ward. Yes. Schob.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1C is approving the professional services agreement between the city and Idaris, Inc. for preliminary engineering services for the North 27th Street, O Street, I-80 Lincoln Adaptive Traffic Signal Control Project, introduced by Beckius.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilman McGinnis. Any discussion? Seeing none, may we please call a roll?
Washington.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1D is approving a professional services agreement supplemental number 1 for preliminary engineering design services between City of Lincoln and Idaris, Inc. for the North 27th Street, O Street, I-80 Lincoln Adaptive Traffic Signal Control Project, introduced by Beckius.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilman McGinnis. Any discussion? Seeing none, may we please call a roll?
Ward.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. We'll move on to Section 4, our public hearing liquor resolutions. Item 4A, application of Rhino Dynamics, Inc. for a special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring an irregular shape approximately 300 feet by 300 feet, located on 14th Street between O Street and P Street, and the alleyway between 14th Street and Centennial Mall on September 24th and 25th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Is the applicant here? Oh, yes.
Hello, members of the council. I'm Scott Hatfield from Duffy's Tavern, and thanks for hearing this. We're really looking forward to Lincoln Calling this year. As you guys know, it's a slightly modified festival. What with the risk dial where it is, we thought it would be more prudent to move the entirety of the festival outside. So it's a bit of a downer for the venues that were involved. There are 5 venues involved, and typically it's an inside-outside festival. But this year it's just going to be an outside festival just in order to keep people safe. So we're really looking forward to it, and we expect it to be a great weekend.
Are there any questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item?
Now's your chance. Lincoln's calling.
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on.
Oh, Lincoln's listening. That's better. We need to vote.
We'll go ahead and move on.
Yeah, we're ready to move on. Sorry.
Would you like to move that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I would like to move that, Mr. Chair. Seeing no one else coming forward, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this agenda item.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schob, seconded by Councilwoman Washington. Any discussion? Seeing none, may I please call roll?
Beckius.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Sorry, got caught up in a moment.
Our next section of the agenda is Section 5, Public Hearing Resolutions. Item 5A is resolution recognizing Hunger Action Month.
Councilwoman Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really delighted and honored to be introducing this resolution on behalf of the Lincoln Food Bank to declare Hunger Action Month for the month of September. And as it's turned out, it's sort of been a food awareness day for the council. We had a briefing earlier before our directors meeting on from the Urban Ag team in Lincoln and Mickey Esposito about food scarcity in Lincoln. So this makes it even more timely today to introduce this resolution, again, that has brought to us by the Lincoln Food Bank, and we're going to be hearing from the executive director here in a moment. But I just wanted to share, if I might, some startling statistics that I think we need to be mindful about as we think about this resolution, and none spoke louder to food insecurity than the hard work of the Lincoln Food Bank during the last almost 2 years with the pandemic. So thank you, Michaela Kumke, and all of your staff for everything you've done to keep so many people fed the last year plus. So here's some facts from Director Kumke's staff that I want to share. An estimated over 38,000 people in Lancaster County experienced food insecurity this last year. Of that 38,000 plus, over 11,000 of those are children under the age of 18. Last fiscal year, the Food Bank of Lincoln connected neighbors in Lancaster County to more than 9.9 million meals. Imagine that if you can, 9.9 million meals in one fiscal year. In Lincoln Public Schools, more than 45% of our students qualify for the free and reduced lunch program. And the last thing that I'll share, and then we'll hear from the director, a 2019 study from the Community Health Endowment of Lincoln revealed nearly a 20-year difference in life expectancy for residents of Lincoln based on the part of town where they reside. The same study showed lower life expectancy occurs in the same portions of the city that have the lowest access to healthy food. So it is indeed a day to talk about food scarcity and hunger in Lincoln. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back to you and our testifiers. Thank you very much.
We'll go ahead and open it up, and we'll start off with the Executive Director of the Food Bank.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bowers and members of the council. My name is Michaela Kumke, and I am proudly serving now as the President and CEO of the Food Bank of Lincoln. We're located now at 4840 Doris Bear Circle in Northeast Lincoln. I'm here today in favor of the resolution to acknowledge Hunger Action Month. For nearly 40 years, the Food Bank has focused on closing gaps between need and resource. These next few comments from neighbors we've served in the last year remind us of our why. Michelle says, there are a lot of families like mine that are stuck in the middle where things get really tight really quickly. I work 2 jobs, and even with cutting my expenses, it is not enough to make ends meet, especially when raising kids. Chris said, because of the food bank, the kids aren't hungry. They go to get an apple or orange or a handful of blueberries instead of eating bread and butter with sugar on it. This is healthier eating for all of us, and it has made a huge difference. And Chelsea, a single mother of 2 kids, who called me late on a Friday afternoon, said she had $40 in her bank account, and she talked about the need to buy a birthday gift so her son could show up to a party and be involved in the fun. And she simply said, thank you for listening. I am resilient. For many of us, the choice of food often relates to what's on tonight's menu, not if there's food in the house. We believe that folks should not have to make these difficult and impossible decisions between putting food on the table and buying essential medicines, or having quality health care, or paying an electric bill, or having reliable childcare. As Councilwoman Ward said, pre-pandemic, we connected 9.9 million meals. In fact, the last fiscal year, we set a record across our 16 county service area to connect 13.2 million meals. Much of that happened because of support from this community and all of you. For a little perspective, the number of children in our community alone who face food insecurity would fill Pinnacle Bank Arena. I'll let that sink in just a minute. We are continuing to do this work, and some of you know that we are engaged in a $10 million capital campaign project to build a new facility that will maximize the size of our freezer and cooler space and our overall footprint so that we can get food out more quickly, more efficiently, and have even healthier food on site and out our doors as quickly as possible. Involvement in Hunger Action Month and the recognition of its essential, this whole topic, as well as this capital campaign, is your yes to the why of our work. Thank you all for your service and for your commitment to this cause.
Thank you so much for coming down and testifying and sharing the work that you do.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Councilwoman Ward, would you like to close on your resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank President and CEO Kumke, not Executive Director. I put that in that nonprofit category. So for the record, she is president and CEO of the Lincoln Food Bank. And I would just add, I often forget, in Lincoln, we're so fortunate to have the Lincoln Food Bank, but as President Kumke mentioned, Lincoln Food Bank does serve 16 other counties. And so they were more than busy and still are during this critical time that our community and other communities find ourselves in. So I just want to thank her for that.
And we are a nonprofit. I'm taking my pen because
yes, don't forget your pen. That adds to that bottom line. Yes, that budget. That's right. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Awesome. All right. We had opening. We had public hearing. We closed it. We're going to move on to the next item.
Item 5B is accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city for August 16th through August 31st, 2021.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item?
I think this is the right time. I don't know. My name's Carl Bergen. I was here with my wife that was pregnant with twins, which we've had since now, so she's not with me. But
congratulations.
Thank you. Everything's going good so far. I just need more sleep. Anyway, I got an email saying that the decision would be delayed to today for that claim. As far as the claim, I don't really have any update. I've tried reaching out to the water department, and Mr. Andy Walker is I think the assistant superintendent over there. I never got in touch with him. I just tried to get in touch with somebody to get some clarification on that broken valve, but I tried calling and leaving several messages, and they never answered. So other than that, we just want to thank you for hearing our case. And
are there any questions for, I'm sorry, I'm blanking, Carl. Are there any questions for Carl? No. Okay, seeing none. If you want to have a seat and hang tight, we'll invite Director Elliott up and then provide you an opportunity to provide rebuttal.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Liz Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. After we met last time on this claim, I did do some additional investigation, did speak with Mr. Walker at the Water Department as well. The break was ultimately due to a spot failure due to corrosion. It was corrosion that was not spotted on prior maintenance or anything like that, so it was unknown to the Water Department. Mr. Burgeon did mention last time about the nut on the valve on 52nd and Sumner was rounded off. That was in fact correct. That happens fairly frequently where we have different issues that come up, whether it's age, corrosion, rounded nuts, those types of things. So this was not an unusual situation. This is the response time in this one was perfectly within our normal response times. It was not unduly delayed or unreasonable in that response, but that was a factor when we were responding. This water main was over 100 years old. It looks like it was installed, well, just shy of 100 years. It was installed in 1922, so it is a fairly old one, but we have not had any issues in this system since 2014. So this system really has been holding up quite well, which is not uncommon for our 100-plus year mains out there. They really were built well and have been holding up very well on this one. So we did not have a series of breaks that would cause us concern. There were not a number of breaks that gave us an indication that a break at this time would be expected or reasonable to have occurred. So this one, we did, on our response times, obviously we want to respond as quickly as possible because we do clearly understand that what water damage can be. And so we do everything we can. The timing and when it breaks really does impact how quickly we're able to respond. If one would break right now at 3 p.m. and we have crews out on the streets, it's quick and easy. But if it happens at 3 a.m., we're not like the fire department where we actually have people in the office at that time. We actually have to call in and on call. So it is a little bit longer. So our position ultimately is if we base reasonableness solely on how long it takes us to respond or get that water shut off, it creates a very difficult and challenging burden. We do believe that the response here was appropriate. We've had water breaks like this instead of taking over 8 hours to shut off. So every situation is a little different. Every situation poses its own unique challenges, and this one was not unlike many others that we experience on a regular basis. So I think that that deals with all of the questions that came up last time this came. If there's any other questions, though, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does the council have any questions for Director Elliott?
Do not.
Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much, Director Elliott. Carl, if you want to come back up and provide a rebuttal?
Thanks. I really don't have much. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is, I know the on-call technician that night was, he lives over in Eagle, so with that drive time coming from there, as well as, I mean, even if it was just a few minutes to you know, go to the next valve, I mean, that just all added up to more damage, so.
Are there any questions from the council at this time? Okay, so here's what will happen. We have one more item to go through under resolutions. Then when we get to vote, when we get to item 5B, then a council member would have the opportunity to move to remove your claim from the accepted list. And then if a council member does that, and that means that your claim was removed from being denied. If a council member does not move to remove your claim from the accepted list, then that means that the denial of your claim would move forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on item 5B? I would like to note that the council received an email from Benjamin Christ. He stated that he would not be able to be here today due to his work hours, and requested that his claim be moved to an evening meeting of next week. So I would ask that a motion be made to delay his for a week from the council when we get to the voting session. Okay. All right. Anyone else want to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on.
Item 5C is approving amendment number 1 to the development and marketing agreement between the city and Blue Source Energy LLC to define the ratio by which of proceeds received from 4 non-transportation applications be split between the city and Blue Source Energy LLC.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for having me here today. I want to talk about the amendment to our Blue Source contract. This is a contract that is for the marketing of our biogas that comes from our wastewater treatment facility. And they do the sales of both the green attributes and the brown attributes. That means just the wholesale of the gas versus the actual RINs or renewable identification numbers that go through the EPA. Now, this was basically originally for vehicle fuel, but we're now finding that there's a lot of other opportunities out there for us. And we've now identified renewable thermal certificates that would be for companies buying this gas, not necessarily for vehicle fuel, but paying a premium price that equals what we're getting in the RIN market. So we have an additional revenue stream that we want to amend to this contract. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Are there any questions from the council at this time? Oh, Councilman McGinnis?
Yes, thank you for coming up, Ms. Garden. It says in the amendment that it is section 8.2 shall be amended, so we can go ahead and sell this in biogas, and it's not utilized in transportation fuel. But it says shall pay the city according to the sharing amount as described in section 8.2A. Is there an 8.2A been attached yet?
There is. It may not have been attached to this amendment, and I apologize for
Okay,
that. It's
I'd
in
like
the
to see it.
contract, and the split is basically 88% to the city, 12% to
Okay,
Blue Source.
that's what I needed to know.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on.
We can now vote on these items. Item 5A is resolution recognizing Hunger Action Month, introduced by Beckius.
So moved.
Moved and seconded by Councilwoman Washington, and it was introduced formally by Councilwoman Ward. Any discussion?
I would just like to reiterate what Councilwoman Ward mentioned earlier about the Food Bank of Lincoln and how vital they are to our community's success, and to thank them for the good work they do not only in Lincoln but the surrounding counties, and to reiterate that As they continue to finish their fundraising on their new location, people can always make a donation to help them finish up that fundraising. So, thank you.
Any other comments?
Here, here.
Any further comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and call the roll.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 5B is accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city for August 16th through August 31st, 2021, introduced by Beckius.
Moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded by Councilman McGinnis. Any discussion?
Before we vote on this item, I would like to honor Mr. Chris' request for a motion to delay his item until next week.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Washington, seconded by Councilwoman Ward to delay Benjamin Chris hearing for 1 week for the evening meeting. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and call the roll on that motion to amend.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, now back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion?
No.
Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 5C is approving amendment number 1 to the development and marketing agreement between the city and Blue Source Energy LLC to define the ration by which of proceeds received from for non-transportation applications will be split between the city and Blue Source Energy LLC. Introduced by Beckius.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilman McGinnis. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, may I please call the roll?
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Okay. We'll move on to section 6, is our public hearing ordinances, second reading, and related resolutions. I'll be calling items 6A through 6E together. Item 6A is amending Lincoln Municipal Code Section 2.76.155, compensation plan longevity pay to remove the reference to M classifications and adjust annual pay for all levels of longevity pay for unrepresented W classifications by amending Section 2.76.380, sick leave with pay to remove limit for family sick leave usage and repealing Sections 2.76.155 and 2.76.380 as hereto existing. Item 6B is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter A by changing title from Community Development Program Specialist to Urban Development Program Specialist. Item 6C is amending the pay schedule for a certain employee group by adjusting the schedules of annual, monthly, biweekly, and hourly pay range equivalents for employees of the City of Lincoln whose classifications are assigned to pay ranges prefixed by E. Item 6D is amending the pay schedule for a certain employee group by adjusting the schedules of annual, monthly, biweekly, and hourly pay range equivalents for employees of the City of Lincoln whose classifications are assigned to pay ranges prefixed by W. And item 6E is amending the pay schedule for a certain employee group by adjusting the schedules of annual, monthly, biweekly, and hourly pay range equivalents for employees of the City of Lincoln whose classifications are assigned to pay ranges prefixed by X.
Good afternoon, Council. Doug McDaniel, Human Resources, 6A 21-109. We make two changes to the code in this section. The first is to remove M class from the code for longevity pay because that is contained within their labor agreement. The other is in that same section to update the pay schedules for longevity for the W class. Again, those are the unrepresented individuals in the upper management ranks and professional ranks. The other section dealing with sick leave is to remove the limit for family sick. We may have briefed you on this before. Under the Oracle build, it is much easier to not have a limit in that family sick. It has no cost to the city whatsoever. So I'll move forward unless there's questions on each one of these. 6B, We have an existing classification community development program specialist. We're going to change the title and the pay range assignment. That will be in the urban development area, so that will be changed from community development program specialist to urban development program specialist, going from an A11 to an A14. Urban development received a fairly significant grant for lead paint abatement, and this classification will be coordinating that lead paint abatement across the community. 6C, 21-111, we amend the pay schedule for those classifications in E. These are unrepresented excluded, and that's a 4.5% increase for these 18 employees. 6D, very similarly, 4.75% for the classifications in the W pay range. This is about 60 some odd classifications who are unrepresented. And 6E, the same annual cost of living increase for the X class. These are also excluded, 4.5%, another 18 employees there. Individual questions?
Are there any questions?
No.
At this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any of the items 6A through 6E? Okay, seeing, oh, is it? No, okay. We'll go ahead and move on then.
Item 6F is approving a one-year lease between City of Lincoln Aging Partners and Blue Valley Community Action for the lease of office space in Crete, Nebraska for $290 per month beginning October 1st, 2021.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item?
Good afternoon, City Council. Again, my name is Kay Wenzel. I am the Administrative Program Manager at Aging Partners, and Randy Jones was unable to be here today. We have come before you with a lease agreement for space to be occupied by our State Care Manager in Crete, Nebraska. Aging Partners has maintained an office in Crete for well over 20 years as part of our area-wide Agency on Aging responsibilities. We have 8 counties in our area, and Saline County is one of them. We're canceling the current lease and subleasing proposed space from Blue Valley Community Action. We feel it's a good site. It has additional handicap parking spaces and will enable clients who come to that office to perhaps receive or get acquainted with services from Blue Valley Community Action as well. The monthly payment is consistent with our budget and our current rate, and no city dollars, tax dollars, are used for this purpose. It's all state care management funded.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on.
Item 6G is approving the amendment to lease agreement between LPD Ave LLC and the City of Lincoln to extend terms lease for an additional 9-month period with option to extend an additional 3 months for property located at 4843 Huntington Avenue.
Brian Jackson, Assistant Chief of Police, Lincoln Police Department. This is simply a bridge between our current location, which is 4843 Huntington, until we're able to locate at our new location, is 5201 R Street, which is just recently closed on. We're working with architects and hoping to expedite a remodel that we can be in by the time that this lease is done. We examined some other options, but when you add the cost of moving at least two times, it makes it considerable, and we thought the best is to continue through our lease. We have funds through dollars available to us to continue this lease, not through budgetary dollars, but through other dollars that we are using to provide us that avenue.
Are there any questions for Assistant Chief Jackson? Seeing none, thank you so much. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. We were not happy about the Huntington arrangement when it was originally came up and then reinforced. So we are glad to hear that a new place has been decided upon. For some reason, the city seems to think that the Scott brothers are the only people that they can do business with. Hopefully, the rent on the new place will be a lot less. And I didn't have any information that could tell me that it would be or not, but the move seems to be a good idea, particularly with all the empty space, commercial space in town. It's crazy to pay high rent anymore.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item? Okay. Assistant Chief Jackson, did you want to close or?
I just want to reiterate, the new location that we're going to is owned by the city of Lincoln. It's been purchased. There is no further lease payments once we get inside. So we're also excited about that. It's been a good home for us for 15 or so years, but we found an opportunity and we have taken it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we had an opening, and we had public hearing, and we had a close, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next item.
I'll be calling items 6H, I, and J together, approving an amendment to the Lead Place Residence Redevelopment Agreement between Lead Place LLC and the city relating to the redevelopment of property generally located south of Q Street between 11th and 12th Streets, amending the fiscal year 21-22 CIP to authorize and appropriate up to an additional $716,000 in TIF funds for the Lead Place Residence Redevelopment Project, and authorizing the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the Lead Place Residence Redevelopment Project.
Good afternoon. Dan Marvin, Urban Development, 555 South 10th Street. I want to spend just a little bit of time. We'll talk about the specifics of this, but I think a lot of times we speak in shorthand, and so then we don't, the public is left not quite understanding the entirety of the tax increment financing process. So when we bring before you a allocation for tax increment financing, technically what that is that's a present value calculation. That's taking a stream of revenue that comes in over a 15-year period, or in some cases a 20-year period, and discounting that back to a present value. And that's something I think a lot of people in the public aren't particularly familiar with, so I kind of put a little sheet together to hopefully explain the variables that come into play when you do a present value calculation. You need to know a few things. You need to know what the interest rate is, you need to know what the payment is, and you need to know the term. And if your future value is going to be zero, then you can go with that. So if I had $1,000 a year coming in, over 15 years it'd be $15,000. But the present value at 6% would be $10,294. That's what your borrowing amount would be. And if it changed, if the rate went down, a lot of savers like to have rates go up, but it works the opposite. If the rate were to go down, then the amount of present value would go up. And that's really the change that we have before us. And that's what 6I articulates, is that the rate has gone down, so consequently the amount of present value that can be used for projects has gone up. And what is identified as additional projects that we would like to do and what was originally proposed would be a few items. One, there's related costs associated with issuing, of redoing this over again. There's a city administrative fee that's associated with the issuance of tax increment financing. There are right-of-way improvements, which typically are sidewalks. We've seen costs go up. They're putting the sidewalk in as we speak. And those costs can be paid for with tax increment financing. And then the other item that is new on this list are elevators, basically improvements within a city parking garage that is located next to the Lead Place. That parking garage has elevators that were put in October of 1994. They have reached their useful life. Typically, the Parking Enterprise Fund would have paid for those, but we've been deferring a lot of projects, principally because our parking revenues went down, which we've all discussed with you, which was because the pandemic affected the amount of people that were coming into the downtown. We've delayed that. This will provide cash for the city to be able to replace those elevators and make some improvements in the entryway area. And then the last item that you will see on this would be facade improvements. The developer has seen costs go up for their facades, and this would allocate additional funds that way. Basically, the public improvements would be sidewalk improvements and the fees and other things that we would normally have, plus the elevators. The public improvements constitute about 63% of the additional TIF that's being allocated here. With me is Mr. Houston, which would be available to come up and speak to this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Director Marvin at this time? Councilwoman Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Marvin and maybe Mr. Houston, I am curious, since the valuation went up, so we have more current spending, we can spend more money here. So now I want to ask a couple of questions about the facade improvements and the sidewalks.
Okay.
So will there be anything new that we would not have seen, or is this really just covering construction material costs?
It's mostly covering construction material costs. I know that in particular as it relates to the sidewalk costs that have gone up, and we've had projected increased costs associated with that. I can't speak to the facade improvements, but I'm sure Mr. Houston could address that.
Okay. And then the elevators, I think they speak for themselves.
The elevators were not originally part of the original agreement.
Okay. Just curious if we were going to see more planters or something else pretty.
Well, it's going to be the original approved streetscape improvements were really are very nice. So I think the public's going to enjoy being able to walk through that corridor.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions from the council? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. And Mr. Houston?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the council, my name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th Street, Suite 1900 here in Lincoln. On behalf of Lead Place Limited Liability Company, back in February of 2019, this body, the City Council, approved a redevelopment agreement for this project. Lead Place then commenced construction during the summer of 2019, and here we are 2.5 years later, nearing completion of construction. The project did encounter delays and supply challenges during the last 18 months during COVID, and we have the opportunity to refinance, as Director Marvin has indicated. And what that really means is that, this body deals with this issue frequently, but when you have the ability to refinance indebtedness, you can improve the circumstances for everybody. We looked at the opportunity to refinance the tax increment financing indebtedness, and we could save about 150 basis points, which on $5 million of debt means it's about $75,000 per year. We're able to present value that income stream and translate it into $700,000 of additional indebtedness, which the developer's really splitting with the city because of the increased cost to the city in the parking garage. So we think it's a win-win for everybody. The cost of the facade improvements that have increased, the project never was intended to pay for 100% of those facade improvements, because we always have more eligible expenses than we're going to generate in tax increment financing. There's a lot of eligible costs in this project likewise. So the three items on your agenda deal with just the amendment to the redevelopment agreement, the CIP amendment, and then the amendment to the bond ordinance to authorize the additional issuance of tax increment financing of another $716,000. The other thing I would point out is that construction is nearing completion, but the interior finish work is going to take a few more months. We're anticipating full completion, construction completion, and occupancy of all of the space probably in January of 2022. And if you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Are there any questions from the council at this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Mr. Houston. Is there anyone else that wishes to come up and speak?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. It gets very old for the public to have to speak against the TIF. It's not meant to do facade. It is to show, it is required that the applicant show that it could not be made but for, and all of the sweet talk that they want to give us from the Department of Development over here about how lovely the public will think about it. If they realize that their taxes go up every time that a TIF is brought forth, maybe not one-to-one there, but overall. I should have brought a couple of articles I have which say that TIFs are nothing but a ruse to diffuse anger of the public about the height of their taxes. So, again, the council approves these TIFs and does nothing to make it any different. Actually, the legislature is the one who should put their foot down about how the TIF is misused here in Lincoln and in Omaha and probably in Grand Island. There has to be a top of this, otherwise it's going to go on, and the taxes of the public will go up and up. I'm not so sure that this isn't something that they couldn't say it was blighted, so they decided to justify to get more TIF money. Maybe that's a cynical viewpoint, but it doesn't sit right with us.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Mr. Houston, Director Marvin, would you like to close? Okay. All right. So we had public hearing, we had it open, we had it closed. Let's go ahead and move on.
That concludes our public hearing portion. We can move on to section 7. Item 7A is change of zone 21029. Request of Deb Eisenbarth from AG Agricultural District to AGR Agricultural Residential District on property generally located at South 54th Street in Silver Springs Court, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilman Beckius. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, may we please do a roll call?
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 7B is amending Chapter 5.41 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to salvaging, recycling, and composting operations to adopt regulations and permitting requirements of businesses and individuals engaged in buying and selling of catalytic converters, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilwoman Washington. Any discussion? Councilwoman Ward, you're recognized. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that we do have a motion to amend, which I would move to do so. It's motion to amend number 1. Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilman Beckius. Any discussion? Councilman Ward, would you like to open or? No, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're going to hear from Chief Jackson, and if we need others to come forward, I think we'll ask after that time. So,
Assistant Chief Jackson.
Thank
You're recognized.
Brian Jackson, Lincoln Police Department. This has been a work in progress, and Jessica, if you want to step up, because I think there's going to be some questions about language changes. This has been an effort with several of our salvage operations within town to find agreeable language as we work through this process, and I think we have found solutions to all but one. Most of the changes, as requested, is to highlight some of these changes. Not all of these are police department changes, so some of these come from the health department, and so those really that have been in discussion range in the 541-210 and 541-220 sections. And many of our changes are new languages that was eliminated based on those discussions. And so you may not even see those changes because they don't exist, because they weren't part of the original and they weren't part of the final. So as we work through the process and working with these people in question, we've tried to find a middle ground in all of those cases. Just if you can focus on some of the specific language changes.
As you said, or as the Assistant Chief said, most of those changes are occurring in 210 and 220. I'd say that they focus kind of on three main areas from the original that was submitted to the council back at the beginning of August. First being in 210, the Lincoln Police Department was interested in using an electronic reporting system, specifically something that the salvage yards would use to upload information from their transactions into an electronic system. That was something that they were strongly objecting to, and something that we deferred to and took that electronic reporting out, specifically that Leads Online software service. So we switched that to either a hybrid of a paper and electronic reporting system, a way for the information to get to the Lincoln Police Department directly for their purposes as needed for investigative reasons. Also in 210, a lot of the changes that were made in specifically subsection B have to do with what was being required to be collected, the information that was required to be collected. We had some pretty robust conversations with the Omaha Police Department, had done different searches nationwide to address the type of information that the Lincoln Police Department thought would be most helpful as they try to investigate thefts of catalytic converters. And some of that detailed information that they were looking for, I think, was a little too onerous or burdensome for the salvage yards to take in all at one time. Some of the photographing requirements and things like that. So we took some of that out. And thirdly, the business-to-business exemptions that are mostly in 210 or 220. I'm sorry, dealing with large scope. Big semis full of truckloads of things that are coming into the yards that needed to be exempted from some of the permitting and reporting requirements that we were after. And we put back the fingerprint exemption for business-to-business transactions, and then added that subsection D for exempting business-to-business transactions as well. So those are the three main areas that we negotiated out and worked with the yards on.
The specific item that was left on the table is the concern over the third-party vendor, and that's, the question comes, what is a third-party vendor, in the sense that sometimes we have interns and college kids that help us analyze our data, and this theoretically could prevent us from sharing that data with individuals along those lines. I've been sent the consent decree with Omaha, and in almost at every case it says add for law enforcement purposes only, and we added that into our ordinance for that very purpose, so that we could meet those concerns to say we are only using these for our purposes, not to share with others, in a hope that would alleviate some of those concerns, because that is almost word for word used in this consent decree that they bring forward as an example with Omaha. And so adding that, we thought that would solve that problem. I don't believe that it has. I'm just advising that I believe that still remains a contention. But I have shared that we have no intention in sharing with our current provider for our ponds, which exists, this information based on that concern from those two vendors. You got to realize that this ordinance encompasses many more than those two vendors, and we have to be aware of the impact of how that may impact everyone and how we deal with everyone based on those words, and this is what we're trying to take into account. So trying to find that product that makes everybody happy. We made some changes that weren't necessarily first on our list to make changes, and I would assume a lot of legislation is where both parties don't get everything that they want. So I'd be glad to answer any questions. We could probably go in specific language if you want, Councilperson Washington, if you want, if you have any questions.
I think this, thank you,
I
Mr. Chair.
apologize.
If, I think this is good, but would you please would you tell me, for law enforcement purposes only, is that language in 110 or 220?
It's in 210.
210.
And A.
A, thank you. And the.
About midway down.
Got it, thank you. So, we've heard from we've heard from someone representing Alter and Sadoff that they have some concerns with personal identifiable information, PII, being transferred to a third party, and then, being leaked out beyond that party. So can you tell me how an intern is a third party? I would not have thought of them as a third party.
Depending on what iteration that was presented to us from the scrap dealers, there was any number of ways it was presented to us. The last one being, I think, third-party distributor.
I think that's
It's in some terms, but basically, what does that mean? Because I don't know, it's not defined. And the challenge is, we have no intent to share that outside these types of information. This is less about salvage yards and more about people stealing catalytic converters. That is the focus of this ordinance, not a magic ordinance, but we believe it will provide us tools that we don't currently have that will enable us to better protect the citizens of Lincoln from this type of crime. And it just, what is a third party? It doesn't say who that would be, how we share our data. It is upon request. We have to go ask for that data. It isn't sent to us. Pawnbrokers have to send us the data. We have to go ask for that data. And again, they're not the focus of this. It is data that's meaningful to us, because if people are pawning multiple catalytic converters, and certainly we'd want to know who those are and where they're coming from, which is outlined in the ordinance. They're a partner in this with us, and being a partner, it's our hopes that we can find, mutual use of that information so that they're not buying stolen property, and we can identify those trying to sell that stolen property.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on Councilwoman Ward's motion to amend? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on Councilwoman Ward's motion to amend.
Can we have the councilwoman read her motion to amend, please?
Sure.
It's this whole packet.
It's the whole packet.
It says, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
It's a substitute, it replaces.
Okay.
It's a substitute ordinance, Councilwoman, so.
Okay.
But if it would be helpful, we could call up Mr. Wesley.
Yeah.
If you have questions for him, would that be helpful?
I think that would be helpful,
Okay,
because you're
Mr.
right, I don't
Chair.
want you to read
Okay.
everything.
Mr. Chair, may we call up Mr. Wesley, please?
Come on up.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I apologize for drawing this out, but when emails come in, like right after each other, in the morning, I'm like, okay, wait a second.
Madam Council Member and members of the City Council, for the record, Don Wesley, representing Alter and Sadoff. And yes, this has been confusing, and we're sorry to take now almost six weeks. Let me begin by thanking everybody at the city who's been so wonderful, and Chief Jackson has been great, and the City Attorney's Office, the Mayor's Office have all been willing to work with us, and we're not trying to obstruct anything. There's only so much that we can do with our systems and the processes that we have, and we have stretched ourselves as well to try to accommodate the concerns of the police department. The one thing that, I don't know if you remember this, when I first came up here, when it was first up for its first hearing, which we only had a few days before it even heard about, I talked about this Leads Online and the fight we went into in Omaha and how we settled on that. And the concern has always been this information, our fingerprints and photographs and driver's licenses and very important information for these individuals that are our customers. And for those to potentially be hacked or leaked concern us a great deal. And then our own business information, of course, is valuable too. So we've been really sensitive about this. And what was agreed to in Omaha was through that lawsuit and the settlement. And it was far more comprehensive than what we're asking for here. We actually are indemnified from any kind of leak by the city of Omaha if something did happen to that information. And we did ask for that, but the city attorney and the police department thought that wouldn't be possible, and we understood that. But we do think the last remaining language that we are asking for would add this sentence that the city and the Lincoln Police Department agreed they will not share or provide any of the business information provided directly to them under this chapter to the city's designated third-party provider. That's it. They've already indicated they don't want to utilize Leads Online. That's not their intent. We just like it in the ordinance. It would reassure us, and I don't think it'll hurt what they're doing. It doesn't involve interns. It's a designated third-party provider. That's not somebody coming in to help them out. So we know who it means, and I think it's clear enough of what that intent is. So thank you for your time. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wesley. Any further questions for Mr. Wesley? Seeing none, thank you so much. Any further discussion on Councilwoman Ward's motion to amend?
No.
Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and call the roll on Councilwoman Ward's motion to amend.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, now back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll on the main motion.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward, Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Our resolutions first readings are items 8A through 8G. Our ordinances first readings and related resolutions are items 9A through 9C. And our pending list in section 10 are items 10A through 10C.
And today is an open microphone session. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planning to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time. Individuals are allowed a total of 5 minutes to speak, regardless of the number of topics. If you come forward, please state your name and address, and if you're representing a group or not. The next microphone session will be September 27th. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on open microphone?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. I guess I shouldn't say members of the public have come into possession of some information about the Communist Party that is inviting American leaders, particularly Democrats, to come over and have some discussion with them about various issues. One of them in 2016 was about looking at the audit of the 2020 election. This part of the Communist Party is called the Communist Party's United Front, and it's an effort to co-opt and neutralize sources of opposition to the policies and authority of the ruling Communist Party. So in other words, it's to break down barriers of protection that the leaders of the U.S. government might have in standing up for their own government. It's developed a tactic for favorable filings, and the trips function as a part to key influence opinion leaders regarding the Chinese Communist Party. In 2016, our mayor, Larian Gaylor Baird, was a guest at one of these conferences. Now, there's some issue that she may have gone over there twice. This was before she was elected the mayor, but nevertheless, it's she was on the council at that time, and in light of the objective of these meetings, she took a risk to go over there. We believe that the mayor needs to make a statement about this. Is she feeling more favorable to the Chinese government? Is she holding her constitutional oath as in the forefront of her opinions? Is she following the leaders in the Democratic Party as to how they've sent leaders over there? And I'm sure they paid for her and other people's transportation. So we can address the mayor, but everyone on the council who is a Democrat is in her party, is in her camp. And so that's why we're bringing this attention to the council and also to the public who will view this on YouTube or Ruko or whatever else ways that they can find it. It's a dangerous tactic. It is like a fifth column presentation to undermine the U.S. government. At this time, we are in dire situations as far as our allegiance, and our democracy is in great danger. Therefore, that's why we call for the council to encourage the mayor to give forth some information about this and where she stands at the present time. And we hope she would reassure the public in Lincoln, Nebraska, that she is totally in the camp of the Constitution and the democracy in the United States.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I just wanted to get some clarification.
Yeah, come on up.
I was just, I guess, confused. You guys talk so fast sometimes. So I guess, you guys said move, but I know it sounds like remove, so I didn't know what exactly happened with my claim.
Yeah, so what was moved during that item was another person's claim to delay it for a week. A person who had wrote in, a council member did not make the motion to remove your claim from the denied list, so your claim still stands as denied.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on open microphone session? Okay, seeing none.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilman Beckia, seconded by Councilman McGinnis. Any discussion? Seeing none, may we please do a roll call?
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes,
Motion carried 6-0.
we stand adjourned.